When we talk about communicating, receiving and sending information, we often speak in terms of verbal or oral communication. But sound is a very narrow part of a very broad spectrum of communication. Most of our communication is done through visible light, or what we call pictures or imagery. Now, I believe heaven communicates in light. Most of my heaven encounters do not include audible conversations. I don't even see mouths moving when they're talking. I see and understand through light communication that supersedes areas of the brain that govern verbal comprehension. Do you know the saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words? Well, this is the truth about light communication. You receive more information in an image than you do with words that describe that image. And as we communicate and engage with heaven and the realms of our Father, those images actually produce more information. When I engage, I see more information than I'm really able to process at the moment. My conscious brain can only process so much before it starts to ignore additional information. But much of it ends up in the subconscious and remains there for later access. And as we grow in our ability to communicate beyond words and start to understand how to communicate at various energetic frequencies, we'll be able to understand creation much better too. Romans 9:19 tells us that all of creation is groaning. It's crying out in all sorts of energetic frequencies, waiting for the sons of God to arrive. What this is mankind coming into its fullness. Creation is waiting for us to become what we're supposed to be, so that it can be brought out of frustration and be restored. I think one of the first things we can do in our development towards becoming light communicators is to really go after the idea of what I call heart language. Heart language is an extension of light communication and comes from the ancient concept called cardiognosis, or heart knowledge. It is the ability to know the heart thought of another without any verbal or body language cues. Heart knowledge could be considered a form of extrasensory perception, or ESP. It allows the engaging individual to perceive the desires and intents of another's heart. With my own limited experience with cardiognosis, this knowledge has come to me not in words and sentences, but rather through inner sight images and feelings. This is what I would loosely call a form of light language. In the Bible, where it says that Yeshua knew their thoughts with regard to the Pharisees, who often talked privately among themselves about him, what the writers of the gospel were actually saying was that he had heart knowledge of what they were saying in their hearts, therefore knowing their thoughts. And it was by this knowledge that he responded to their hearts. He spoke with his voice, but his whole being resonated and was actually speaking directly to their hearts. And I believe this is why he was seen to have authority of speech that wowed the crowds that followed him around the countryside. He had mastered the ability to hear and speak at frequencies that moved beyond the ears into the heart directly. Heart knowledge is the beginning pathway to becoming fluent in heart language. But before we can activate this energetic knowledge with our hearts, we have to open it and engage through the doorway of love. You see, cardiognosis requires empathy. The only true way that this works is obtaining empathy for the person or object that you're listening to. Of course, this is not always easy, because it requires us to have an excellent love towards even our enemies, to understand what they're doing, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and to be able to hear and then turn around and speak it back. By the way, without love, heart knowledge becomes twisted and poisoned by destructive motivations and dangerous to the whole being health of the practitioner. So it's imperative that love becomes the energy that powers the heart language transceiver, so that your communication remains pure and healthy. And the best way to implement that is by making sure your first love gate of your soul is open and pure. Of course, once you've begun to use heart language with other people, this energetic communication can be extended out to include dialogue with plants and animals, the elements, the stars and planets, all of creation. I believe heart language is one of the most important forms of energetic communication, and one of which we have examples in the history of mankind. Not just in the example of Jesus Christ, but also in other men and women who have attempted and succeeded in activating the concepts of cardiognosis. But I think one of the things that we have to do is remove the interferences that hinder us from activating those antennae that engage with heart language. Aware or unaware, we are constantly bombarded with energy waves that are moving through us on all spectrums. A lot of it is just noise. It's not helpful. It causes confusion. It causes obfuscation of what's important. And we need to learn how to filter it out, how to silence it. If you could hear all the frequencies going on, it would be like standing next to a waterfall. When you consider the noise that's being produced by the crashing water, it's really not one single frequency. It's multiple audible frequencies that your ears are picking up at one time. The compounded energy overwhelms your ears, and all your brain can do is translate it into a static sound we call white noise. Now, white noise isn't all bad. Some people use white noise to drown out other noises, but a problem arises when dealing with this phenomenon with regard to the complex network of antennae in our being. What happens is the white noise of our spirit, soul, and body becomes a hindrance to our ability to distinguish and isolate wanted sounds. This works against us as we're learning how to listen and speak on different frequencies of sound or energy. However, one of the simplest ways to mitigate unwanted frequencies around us is to quiet down the environment we live in. We intentionally practice turning off different things that could cause states of interference and confusion. In a similar fashion, to use white noise to cancel out distracting noises, many people use certain frequencies to override the unwanted electromagnetic frequencies. For example, crystals, oils, and other highly energetic objects are used to override, cancel out, or to dilute a particular frequency. But I find that sometimes absence is better than overload when quieting the obtrusive frequencies bombarding us constantly. I think it allows us to unlock the other antennas, to sense and activate them. But we have to become more aware and better observers of the energetic atmosphere that surrounds us. Also, we have to think outside the box. We have to think beyond just the audible and visual and begin to practice stretching out into the other fields, such as unseen electromagnetic fields and beyond. I am in no way an expert in this. I'm only a practitioner myself. I'm still growing in this and still learning. But like in any language, you become more proficient the more you practice. And then it becomes second nature. And then you find that it becomes a native language to you. I think in the same way as we learn how to activate the antennas of our being and operating as a transceiver upon countless frequencies in multiple dimensions, we won't give much thought to the process anymore. We'll just do it. Communicating directly with all of creation will be as natural as speaking our native language. More importantly, communicating with one another will be extremely better because we'll have the capacity to hear someone's heart, to feel what they feel, to have empathy for them, and be able to communicate in healthy relational dialogue. Thanks for taking time out of your day to listen to this podcast. I greatly appreciate it. If you're listening for the first time and you want to continue to follow this podcast, head over to Substack, search for Segulu Studios, and click the subscribe button. If you want to learn more about Segulu Studios, check out my website at segulustudios.com. You can also find me on Telegram, X, Discord, and YouTube. Until next time, continue to discover the you he designed you to be.